In episode 2, they do go to In-N-Out Burger, but when they get back, they start trying to figure out exactly what's going on. They start off with the old school viewfinder. And the photos are super weird, but one of them includes Cassie, who is looking at Will. So clearly, somebody made their own slideshow. All of this is way too weird for Annie. She asks Cassie what's going on, and Cassie comes clean that she's working with the CIA. She tells them everything. At the end of it, both Annie and Max are really surprised, but Annie picks up the wig and notices that it smells like a perfume called Santal 33, which is apparently really expensive. Annie then asks if she's told any of this to Benjamin, and of course, Cassie hasn't. But speak of the devil, Benjamin calls Cassie up. He tells her that they're going to debrief tomorrow about the trip to Berlin, and they have a lot to discuss. Cassie starts freaking out. She doesn't really know what to do. Does she tell Ben? Does she not? And Annie's advice is to not mention it, because all of it, the viewfinder, the wig, it could all be exculpatory evidence. Annie asks her, do you have anybody at the CIA you trust? And of course, Cassie does have Shane, but she also knows that Shane will tell her, stay out of it, let them handle it. Their conversation on how to solve this gets interrupted when Marco comes to the door. And Max, right off the bat, loves Marco, but he doesn't really have time to get to know Marco because Cassie hurries him into the bedroom to get some sleep, saying he looks exhausted. In reality, Cassie doesn't want Marco to overhear any of this because she hasn't told him about it. Everybody then goes off to sleep, but Cassie can't sleep. And that's when she realizes there was something out of the ordinary. It was Grace. There was a bunch of little hints that she didn't notice in the moment, but now looking back on it, they do look suspicious. Like Grace was wearing this scarf that was completely out of date. Why would she be wearing a 2-year-old scarf? She also joked around that she's not a good person. She also has short hair, so she would need a wig. She's a flight attendant, so she'd have access to the luggage. The best part is Grace gave her her number and address. She can just pop on by and start poking around, see if anything looks weird. Annie, though, thinks that is a terrible idea because what if Grace is actually dangerous? She warns her not to do that. Reluctantly, Cassie agrees to not go to Grace's. After all, she does have a lot of errands to run, like she's got to pick up donuts for the AA meeting. And it's a big one. It's going to be her 1-year anniversary. Annie's also busy that day. She has her big interview. And while she's off doing that, Max is going to try to figure out what the photos are of on that viewfinder. So everybody kind of heads in separate directions, but Cassie doesn't do as she said she was going to. She calls Grace up and asks if she wants to hang out. Grace says she'd love to, but she's having a baking issue. It's a, quote, sourdough emergency. That's too bizarre to not be real, yet it also is too suspicious to be real. Cassie doesn't really believe it, and she parks outside of Grace's apartment to see where she goes. And Grace doesn't go to a bakery. She goes to an airport. A small one, where she sees Grace give a man in a small Cessna a bunch of money and he gives her a package. All of it is very suspicious. She's going to have to deal with it later because she has to get to her AA meeting, though. She shows up with 4 boxes of donuts, but she's not the only one. Davey shows up, too. He's been in town supporting Cassie, and Cassie almost ran into him while she was tailing Grace at a farmer's market. She overheard Davey talking to another one of the guys at the farmer's market that he was staying in town for a little bit to support his sister. He is extremely proud of Cassie's growth and her sobriety. But he did notice her at that farmer's market, and he asked her, did I see you there? But Cassie just lies and says, oh, no, why would I go to a farmer's market? He then gives her a bear that says Easy Does It with his voice recorded in it. Very nice gesture. And then out of nowhere, Jenny comes in hot. She gets introduced to Davey, gives him a hug, and overall just seems extremely clingy. Marco then shows up right before the meeting starts because Marco is also in recovery. Everybody in the meeting knows that this is Cassie's 1-year anniversary. So when she gets her chip, she gives a little bit of a speech, thanks most of the people that are there. But as she's doing so, she's getting heckled by drunk Cassie. She's able to snap out of it, though, pretty quickly and wrap the speech up. At the end of it, Marco tells her that he has a bunch of those chips, but the 1-year chip meant the most, and she should feel really proud of herself. Brenda then walks up and asks her how the letter to her dad is coming, and Cassie groans, saying, you gotta ask me that now? But Brenda reminds her that the trip to her dad's grave is coming up soon, so she's gonna have to finish it, which Cassie knows. Davey then comes over. Brenda, Davey, and Cassie are talking a little bit, and the conversation once again gets interrupted by Jenny. She starts congratulating Cassie on the 1-year sobriety, but Cassie gets distracted when she gets a text message from Grace telling her that she's free to hang out now. Cassie tells her, "Great, I'll be right over." She walks back over to Jenny and Davey and tells them that she has to go meet up with a coworker. She completely forgot about it, but she's hoping Davey can meet them for dinner that night. Davey can't. He doesn't want to be a fifth wheel. Plus, Jenny just invited him to her favorite restaurant, which he's going to take her up on. So Cassie leaves Davey alone with Jenny and heads off to go, quote, hang out with Grace. She's a little nervous to go in. After all, she doesn't know if Grace is actually a killer or not. But Grace is just relieved that somebody texted her back. She tells Cassie a lot of times people say they want to hang out and then they just flake. The first thing that Cassie notices in Grace's place is her amazing bread. I mean, it looks like it's fake. Out of a magazine, it's so good. Grace then hands Cassie a glass of rosé, and she's a little confused when Cassie doesn't drink it. Cassie seems to tell everybody that she's in sobriety, but for whatever reason, she doesn't tell Grace this. Instead, she says she does like it and just holds the glass. They start walking through Grace's place, looking at some of the things she has, and Cassie finds out that Grace used to be in the Army until her line of thinking didn't really match up with their line of thinking. She also has some pretty weird art pieces. The woman is a total enigma, but she did just get done with a workout, so she does want to take a quick shower, which is going to allow Cassie to search the place. When Grace heads into the bathroom, Cassie is visited by drunk Cassie, who is pressuring her to break her sobriety after a year. After all, who would know? Cassie doesn't, pouring the glass out and searching Grace's bedroom. She sniffs all of the perfume, but none of them match up with the perfume from the suitcase. She also doesn't find anything in her drawers. And when she peeks into the bathroom, she doesn't see a tattoo on Grace's back. She walks out to the living room where she sees the package that Grace got from the pilot at the airport. She opens it up, and it's just lollipops, and she's pretty confused, but she gets caught by Grace. Grace tells her that the lollipops are a little bit of a side business because they're medical-grade fentanyl lollipops. She sells them to cancer patients. She seems extremely passionate about being a drug dealer. It creeps Cassie out a little bit, and she just wants to get out of there at that point. So she makes up a bad excuse and tells Grace that she'll call her later. While Cassie was trying to figure out if Grace is truly a killer or not, Max was able to figure out what was on the viewfinder. He did a reverse image search, and one of the items is from a statue in a park not too far away. He tells this to Annie when she gets back from her job interview that she bombed. And when Cassie gets home, the three of them head off to the statue. They start looking around, but there's no clue on why this was on the viewfinder. And they're not quite sure what to do. After a little bit of looking around, they just decide to leave. But they're unaware that they're being photographed by somebody with blonde hair. The three then head home and get ready for dinner that night, where Marco joins them. It's a celebration for Cassie's sobriety. During the conversation, Annie makes mention that this is the longest relationship she remembers Cassie ever being in. She asks Cassie how the chip ceremony went, and she says it went great. After that, I just walked around Santa Monica and went to my friend Grace's. And when Annie hears that she went to Grace's place, she asks for a meeting with Cassie alone in the bathroom, where she yells at her for doing exactly what she said she wasn't going to do. Cassie's excuse is, "You should have known I was going to go." She then tells Annie that it's not her. She didn't have any tattoos. The perfume didn't match up. She's just a flight attendant / drug dealer / sourdough baker. And all of this is frustrating for Cassie because she just wants to look the person in the eye and say, "Why me?" She feels like she's just standing there waiting for something terrible to happen to her. Annie tries to calm her down, but it doesn't really work. While those two are having a meeting in the bathroom, outside, their boyfriends are hitting it off. Max is head over heels. He's got a man crush. And while Marco is flattered, he tells him that it took a lot for him to get to this point in his life. Addiction really cost him a lot. A marriage, for one, and he doesn't see his daughter a lot. But he is thinking about asking Annie to move in with him. And that is something that Max is all for. So when the four leave the restaurant, Marco pulls her aside and asks her if she wants to move in. She doesn't really know what to say, and she gets saved by a phone call. But it's from Eli, Megan's son. Eli hasn't heard from his mom in a year, but all of a sudden, he got a weird Snapchat from her. It was a weird message that she said, send to Cassie. And the message is just a bunch of emojis that Cassie's supposed to put together for a message. She has no idea, though, what it means. When Eli tried to snap her back, the account had been disabled. Cassie reassures Eli that his mom does really love him, and she's going to try to take care of it and figure out what it all means. She calls Megan, but Megan doesn't answer. Wherever Megan is, she's on edge. She went out to the woods and started looking for poisonous mushrooms, which she finds. She's got some kind of recipe book and she's muddling them up when the door starts opening and she grabs a knife. A woman walks through that Megan recognizes, and the woman puts on a record and asks Megan to dance with her, which Megan does. So whatever Megan's up to, it's weird. Cassie then goes home with Marco. That leaves Annie and Max to go back to Cassie's place. But when they get there, it's weird. It looks like a guy is breaking in. And that guy is Esteban. The same Esteban from the hotel in Berlin. Annie for sure thinks that he's got sketchy behavior. But he makes up a lie that he's staying across the way in an Airbnb with his wife. And he must have just gotten the houses confused because they look so much alike. When Gabrielle comes out, she's got a taser gun behind her back that both Max and Annie can't see. They continue to perpetuate this lie that they're staying at this Airbnb. The old couple that lived there went out of town, when in reality, the old couple is bound and gagged in a closet. And then finally, Davey and Jenny did go out to eat. But Jenny reveals to Davey that she's the host of a true crime podcast, a podcast that focuses on normal people who are in murder situations, just like Cassie. Davey feels betrayed because he feels like he was invited to this lunch/dinner just so Jenny could get some dirt on his sister. He starts to leave, but she ropes him back in by saying, Cassie woke up next to a dead body, and everybody focuses on her, but that must have been really tough on you. He reveals to her that it has been hard. Him and his husband have also been going through some problems. And he seems appreciative when she tells him, if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this sucked. Make sure to be nice in the comment section. If you don't see the next video up in the end screen there, I'll get it up in a few days, not to worry. And I have merchandise, so go buy a mug or something. It's never too early to think about Christmas gifts, folks. Once again, thank you for checking out this recap.